You hear this intro, we're going to give it a little round of applause. We're having a great tech night. There. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the World Famous Adventures Club of Los Angeles. I'm your host, Rich Mayfield, member 1211, president this year. I'm taking an opportunity to sit down tonight with Vivian Callahan. Vivian, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I think a lot of people in the audience know who you are, but for those joining us on YouTube and for posterity's sake, I know you're definitely an adventurer, and I want you to tell us a little bit about your adventure background, but the reason we're here to talk to you tonight is about your sailing experience. I know you're a 100-ton captain, certified, right, licensed, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So I think it's safe to say that you are a significant power in the sailing community, right?
Well, I don't know how significant I am, but I certainly have done a lot of sailing and a lot of boat deliveries.
Uh-oh.
Did I just?
You did just drop out. Keep talking.
Hello. Okay.
All right, you're back.
Okay. So, yeah, I have my 100-ton license. I have delivered boats all over the world, and I've done a lot of other adventuring.
Before we go too far, I do hear you dropping out just a little bit. Do we need to get a new battery, or what's the deal here? Looks like it's a full battery. We can get you a handheld. I don't want to say too much without having a good mic on you.
Yeah.
It's just punches keep coming tonight. Do you want to grab that handheld, or just keep talking? Let me hear some more.
Yeah, I actually worked with past President Alan Smith on 2 documentaries for one on called 8 Summits, which was Bill Burke's summit of Mount Everest, and also Rescue Man, which was the story of the first ever all-black rescue crew on the beach of North Carolina.
What did you do with Alan Smith on those films?
I wrote, produced, edited.
So you'll forgive us our technical issues then?
Yeah.
You know how live production goes, I'm sure.
I totally get it, believe me. I get it.
That's pretty cool. And you've done some climbing, significant climbing?
Yes, I've climbed to Everest Base Camp to show the movie to the actual Sherpas that appeared in the movie. So that was really exciting.
How did you show it to them at Everest Base Camp?
On my computer.
Oh, wow.
I was going to put it up on a projection, but it didn't work out. So they all kind of gathered around my computer, and I showed it to them there.
That's pretty cool.
It was so much fun.
So let's talk about some of your sailing. How did you really get into sailing?
Well, I started sailing as a teenager, and my first big trip was to Lahaina, Maui, and back on a 36-foot Angleman Davies ketch out of Redondo Beach.
Wait, so you went from Redondo
to Lahaina, and then
on a 36-foot ketch?
On a 36-foot ketch, and did all of the navigation by sextant. It works. It works. And I was very surprised when I was able to get a fix and find that I was less than a quarter mile off.
That is impressive. So I have to ask, you said I was able to get a fix. So on the transit, which is 2,000 nautical miles, 20, how far is it?
22, yeah.
How many fixes did you get?
Well, I got most of the noon sites, but coming into the islands, I wasn't able to get any sites because it was foggy and cloudy.
Yeah.
And so I was doing everything via dead reckoning. And so I was thinking, oh my God, but I could smell the islands. I could smell the dirt. It was so beautiful, that perfume. And then I started seeing land birds.
So we have an audience of sailors. I know everybody here knows what dead reckoning is, but can you explain what that means in terms of, and what effects it has on your navigation?
Well, all I had to work with, I didn't have any sun, I didn't have any of that.
And what does a sun fix get you?
It gives you the latitude.
Okay, but not longitude. You don't know how far east and west. You just have.
But I had to navigate using. I had a spinner, a taffrail log, and this was 1974.
So you're keeping
And
track of your boat speed
boat
through the
speed.
water.
So I was pretty sure I had traveled like 120 miles, and I knew what my headings were, my compass, and I took very copious notes because, you know, that's all I had. So I knew I was probably, you know, on one place, and it turns out I was almost exactly on. I
Nice.
actually, coming into the islands, again, I had all of the indications, and I was thinking, God, the island of Hawaii should be right there, right there. And then I thought I was hallucinating. I saw a light, or I couldn't tell whether it was a star or a light. And I kept thinking, well, that kind of looks like a dark, you know, something, but it was dark. And just when I was thinking, well, probably not, the clouds lifted, and I could see the lights on the shore. And oh my God, that was one of the most wonderful feelings that you could ever have.
And what year was this?
1974.
So GPS, you know, we live in an era of GPS.
Yeah, no
Not
GPS.
available at all.
Not available.
Did you have any other options available for navigation?
I could have had a radio direction finder.
Was the boat equipped with a?
No.
No.
We were so poor. But we were able to kind of, we were able to get various radio stations. And so we
So
were.
you know you're close.
We knew we were close.
So a radio, what's the transmission range of one of these radio stations? Like a couple 100 miles?
It depends. It
And
depends.
I want to compare that to what's the
Because-
visual range of the island.
Oh, God. You know, we were able to get KNX. Halfway, we
like
were
1,000
getting
miles.
we were getting Radio Mystery Theater, and we could hear it, and at 9 o'clock. And then when we knew we were more than halfway, when it started to come in, I think at 6 o'clock. So, you know, that was pretty good range, but we were able to get it.
So that was your intro to long distance
Yes.
offshore sailing.
Yes.
All right. So we're here tonight to talk to you about the fated trip during COVID.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So tell us, you know, you got associated with this boat that was about to make a trip. Tell us about the transit you were going to
Well,
supposed to do.
I had been on the boat twice before as crew, helping our friend Peter Leffy take it from, let's see, Belize, and then from Rio Dulce, Guatemala, to the islands of Honduras, and down to Bocas del Toro, Panama. And he was going to transit the canal, and then continue on to the Galapagos, then to the Marquesas, where I was going to get off, and then go to Tahiti and go down.
So your responsibility on this
Well, I was
3-hour tour was what?
I was a friend, but I'm also a captain. So,
Right.
you know, as captain, I'm responsible.
Right. And he was a boat owner,
Boat owner.
but because of your license,
Yes.
that makes you responsible legally?
Very much so.
So who was the skipper? Because there's one skipper, right?
Well, I was, you know, I was responsible, but, you know, we kind of shared duties, and, you know.
So what type of boat was this?
It was a 43-foot Nauteur Swan. It was a cruising swan, not the regular swan that you see. It's built like a little tank. And
But this is a ketch, right?
It's a ketch, and it's very stout, very sturdy, and there were 24 of them built, and they were built for cruising because they carry 300 gallons of diesel and 300 gallons of water, which is an awful lot for a boat that size.
And this slide that you have up, this is
That's Dream.
that's Dreamtime, and that's
Dreamtime.
on the hard, right?
On the hard. And what we did is we were in on the east side of Panama, and he hauled out and painted the bottom and got her ready, and then splashed her, and then we came, and
And you got on board.
we got on board. Actually, I came with David, who came with his blue tape, and David is my boyfriend. And he came with his tape, and he was going through the entire boat. And finding
Inspector and
places.
putting tape fix this, fix this.
He was amazing.
What percentage of those blue tapes did you actually fix before you took off?
What do you think?
80%. Yeah, that's the correct number statistically, I feel like.
But it's really important that you start with a boat that is reasonably checked out, because I can tell you, a lot of people have said that the definition of cruising is fixing and or repairing your boat in exotic places. And I can tell you that is true.
Right, 300 gallons of diesel helps a lot too.
Oh, yeah, because you're going to be motoring a lot.
Yeah.
Before you get to the trade winds. And once you get to the trade winds, gosh, it's great. You just kind of tootle along. It's just wonderful.
So your plan was to get on this boat, kind of be, I guess, sort of in charge?
Sort of, kind of, sort of.
Not in charge, but responsible. That must be tough, right?
Yeah. You've got to be, one of the things about cruising with anybody is you've got to really know the people, and you've got to really be confident that that boat is going to do what it needs to do. And you can't go on a boat with bad through-hull fittings or a bad engine, or, because you could get killed. And if
What's a through-hull fitting?
It's a fitting that goes through the hull. There's usually hoses attached to it, and it's either sucking water up or putting water back out.
And what's the implication if a bad through-hull fitting goes bad?
Maybe goes bad, or it has, there are, oh my God.
Let's get you the mic here. It is cutting in and out. I'm not sure quite why, but.
Turn your handheld off.
Okay.
And then let's pause 1 second to make
Okay.
sure. I'm sorry you have to hold a mic
It's fine.
through this.
It's fine. So through-hull fittings. I have seen through-hull fittings where the threads from the fitting that comes through the hull don't match the threads of the actual fitting. And manufacturers have done that. And you can't be too careful. There are boats that have sunk because people have just, they've had a situation where the threads haven't been screwed all the way. They've
Cross-threaded or whatever, yeah.
cross-threaded, and then somebody has just slightly kicked them, and all of a sudden the boat sinks.
Whew.
Not good.
So I mean, that's a good question. What is it that makes a good blue water cruiser?
Well, a good stout boat, not a boat that is, I think 35 to 45 feet is really, really good. It's got to be a boat that one or two people can handle, with experience, can handle by themselves. It can't be a boat that has a lot of fancy systems, because you're going to be fixing them or trying to figure out how to fix them. You can't have a big, you have to have a good keel, because you don't want a boat that is going to be blown over on its ear every time the wind blows. And
Now to that point, what kind of sails did you guys have outfitted? Did you have like the full set? Like, did you have like a tri-sail and everything like the?
yes, we did. We had storm tri-sail. We had, but we had like a regular Dacron mainsail and mizzen, and we did have an asymmetrical spinnaker.
So the sail complement is filled out.
Yes.
What about a drogue? Did you guys carry a sea anchor? Yeah.
We did. We didn't use it.
No.
We didn't need to.
Great cruise.
But then again, Swan is a really, really well-built boat. and you can't do much better. Maybe a Hallberg Rassy, oyster, something along those lines.
A
meal.
Does the aft mast, I don't know, it's a ketch, right? But what's the aft mast called? Does it have a name? Mizzen mast? Does the mizzen mast, does that sail area really help over a sloop?
It depends. You have a lot more sail combinations. You can put it out there. It does give you a little more push, especially on a broad reach. If you are getting a lot of wind, you can take down your main and just go with a mizzen and a jib.
And that's nice and balanced?
Nice and balanced. So I like ketches very much.
So then I guess the next question is, well, we lost. The phone killed everything. Oh, well. I'm sure our pictures will be out. So we touched on it a little bit. You said that a good boat needs to be handled, by a couple people.
Right.
But what kind of crew do you want to put together, like when you're really doing these long ocean hauls?
Oh my God, they have to be good team members. You have to know them. It has to be a good combination. People change with the combination, and that can be a problem. They have to be respectful of everyone's feelings and privacy. They have to be reasonably sane. They have to have the ability to manage a boat alone, because each one of these people is going to be standing watch by themselves. And you don't want to bother anybody who's trying to get their sleep in the middle of the night. Unless it's necessary, unless it's absolutely necessary.
So that's interesting. I want to touch on that because, I was a Navy guy, and we didn't have one-man watch teams.
Yeah, well.
Like we didn't, probably because we didn't trust anybody, Like the Navy is built on a lack of trust. And, because you have to, not a lack of trust, but checks and balances, right? So you wouldn't have a one-man watch team because what if that one guy falls asleep?
Yeah, well, yeah, but you just have to be able to trust those people not to fall asleep.
That's true. And I know people do solo.
They do. I do not agree with anybody who goes solo. I think it's dangerous, not only for them, but for other people, because if they hurt themselves and they can't handle the boat, and the boat's on autopilot and just going along, you could kill.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an awful lot that could go wrong.
Do you think that technology, the access to more technology we have these days, changes that at all? Like, for instance, every boat has an EPIRB, but on top of that, you can get a satellite messenger, you can get a sat phone.
Absolutely.
You've definitely got GPS now. And on top of that, if you use Starlink, you've got, broadband internet.
I think it's all great.
Does that make solo
you can't depend on it. Well, solo sailing, you have to get some kind of rest sometime. And a lot of people will turn on a proximity alarm so that if something is coming, it'll wake them up. And some people will set an egg timer for 15 minutes just in case they fall asleep. But really, you need to stand watch 24/7.
Okay, so that's a good question then. So you're a 100-ton captain, so I'm asking you as a captain now.
Yes.
Does a proximity alarm on your GPS or radar or AIS or whatever, the technology-based alarm, does that count as a proper lookout?
No.
So these guys that are sailing, are they technically in violation of, because they're sleeping?
Yes.
But they're allowed to do it because it's a big ocean?
During our trip, we're out in the middle of the ocean. You would think that there would be no problem. You're not, but 2 times we were on a collision course with other boats out in the middle of nowhere. And so that's enough. I mean, you just really, one thing about having a 4-person crew, at night we could stand 2-hour watches. And then everybody has to take responsibility for getting enough sleep so that they will stay awake all for their watch.
2 hours?
Yeah.
No problem. Easy.
If you've gotten a little bit of sleep,
Yeah.
sure, absolutely. And also, I think you've got to think about health. You don't want to have somebody out there who potentially is going to have a heart attack or is, too sick to really do anything. It's a bad idea.
Were you ever on a trip where you did have crew members down? Seasickness or, whatever else it was?
Seasickness, for sure.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
I've been that guy and I've had those guys. I've been on both sides of that one.
I've been that girl too. Believe me, I have.
So we got our graphics back up, fantastic, and we got a map of the Panama Canal, and I think this leads into the first leg of your trip, right? You guys you painted the bottom, you had your boyfriend come out and tell you everything that was wrong with the boat, right? Yes. You fixed 80% of it. And then, the first leg is the Panama Canal.
Well, this is the Panama Canal. And we were over on the east side. And next slide. We went to Shelter Bay Marina. And they have a nice little hotel and shops and haul-up facilities. And so we waited. We got measured. And we got our polypropylene line and our fenders. And then hired a line handler.
This is all part of the experience of going through the Panama Canal.
Yes.
And what was the date at this point? Because I think this is going to be fun leading into.
Let's see, at this point, I think it was like March 1st. March 1st. Okay. Yes.
So people are out there talking about COVID.
Yeah.
It's in China.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And
right.
Life
goes on, and you're down in Panama.
Horrible things, and we went to a meeting where we met Tahiti crew, which they were our agents, and we were along with a group of people who were going across together called the Pacific Puddle Jump, and so we met all of them, and then we started our transit through. And next slide. This is us leaving Shelter Bay. Next. And
this is your crew. Everybody's ready to go. Pre-pandemic, you have no idea what's coming, right?
Yes.
I love seeing these pictures right before the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody knows what's coming. This is March, right? It's like, there's another virus. Okay, here we go.
And then next slide, we're waiting to go through. And we're finally, what they do is they have you go and kind of hang out in a particular area.
So you're just kind of bobbing around. You're not on a mooring or anything. You're just bobbing.
Yeah, and then you wait for your pilot. Next slide, please. They send a pilot to go through with you to help transit.
Okay.
And then next slide. Then we got in the queue. We got the call that they were ready to have us come through. And then next slide. Finally, we start through, and there's the locks closing behind us. Next slide. We got really lucky. Now, I've been through the Panama Canal a number of times, and having the line handlers throw the lines down to you and then throw them back to you, and that's a lot of work. And we got lucky because we got to go through with a tug. So all we had to do was side tie with them. And it made it really, really.
So now when you're going through a lock, like I've never been through, sounds pretty cool. How long does it take for one of those locks to fill?
About, 15 minutes maybe.
Oh, so it's pretty quick.
It's pretty quick.
So the action.
Yeah. And but the thing is, what you have to do is you have to pull in on the lines as the water comes up. And you have to let loose as the water goes down. And
you keep that mic. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. And if you let it loose, your boat can start to crash into the walls. So that's not good.
Or other boats, right? What else is in this lock when you're in the lock?
Usually they send a big boat in with you.
And you're just kind of in the back or on the side?
We were in the back, and we were in the front coming through on the other side, and we had what they call a row-row. which is a roll-on, roll-off
All right.
giant car carrier. And we're sitting there going, oh my God, that was really something.
Was there any fear that that's going to smash into you or anything, or is everything pretty stable in
Everything's
there?
pretty well. They are attached to the mules or the railroad engines.
So they stay in place.
They stay very well in place, yes.
It's cool. So did we go through all these slides? Did we show going through the locks?
Yeah. And then, next slide, we get to Panama City, and we provision. And Panama City, if you've ever been there, is really incredible. They have supermarkets, they have super malls, it's quite something. You can pretty much get everything you need for your transit at these places. And you see.
So you got provisioned up again, and this is so is Panama City? That's on the
west side.
West side. So you're
The Pacific
out.
side.
So you transit the lake and all that kind of stuff, and you
Yes.
made it out, and you reprovisioned.
Right.
And then back to Southern California, huh?
No.
No.
He did. Anyway, next slide.
No. I think one more. We're probably solved. That's okay. So where did you head after Panama City?
So we anchored off of the Balboa Yacht Club. Very nice. Actually, we moored off of there, and they have shore boats that ferry you back and forth. It's quite nice. And then we actually stopped and got fuel, and then we got underway to the Pearl Islands. And let's see, can we go through a little bit? Okay, that's Balboa, and then we got fuel. And then we were underway to the Pearl Islands. We decided rather than going directly to Galapagos, we would kind of make our way through the little islands, and they're very lovely. And
what's COVID doing right now?
Well,
that's what I'm asking. Like
well,
you're hearing this stuff from the mainland.
we're hearing stuff, but everything is fine.
Yeah.
So we're going through, and we get to the last settlement, which is San Miguel Isla del Rey in the Pearl Islands. And we noticed that there was a fisherman in a fishboat going like this, get off, get off. And we're trying to drop our anchor, and we're going to go in, and we're going to have some ice cream and, you know, everything. But they're saying, get out, get out, get out. So okay, fine. So we leave, and we call, and they said, well, you know, they've closed all of the borders. They've closed all of the ports.
So this was Pearl Islands.
Pearl Islands.
So
yes.
they say, so Pearl Islands made the decision while you were kind of tooling around outside there.
They knew we didn't.
Right.
Yeah, they had been told, nobody is allowed. And we didn't know that. But then,
And what month was that?
that was March.
March.
It was March.
Which is fairly early, because the United States, I don't know if we came to terms with shutting down for a while. March 13th?
I think it was about March the 13th. Shut. And we were told, well, you know, you could probably go back to San Diego.
Go home.
Really? Well, isn't that nice? But they finally said, okay, you can go to the Galapagos.
Okay, so at that point, so the tuna fisherman sold you some tuna.
Yeah, tuna fish.
And you had just provisioned in Panama.
Yes, yes.
So you're
We're ready.
You're okay.
We're ready to go. We can advance a little bit here, a little bit more.
And we got a map here.
And one more. That was the village that. Well, there's the
That turned
map
you away?
showing the Pearl Islands. And then the next slide is the village where we were turned away. And then the next is the tuna guy. That was a real fun thing about these places, because the fishermen would come up in a little panga and say, hey, you want some fresh tuna? And we'd say, hell yeah. It was wonderful.
How did you guys cook your tuna? How did you take your fresh tuna that you got off a ponga boat?
I think we made sushi
Sashimi?
out of it.
Sushi?
Yeah, it was great.
That's awesome.
It was great. And then, finally, So we called our agents, and they gave us the okay to go to the Galapagos. Next slide. And there's the map of where we're going to be going.
So this is when you're about to cross the equator, right?
Yes.
So who on that boat was a shellback and who wasn't?
I was a shellback. Lon Bubeck was, who was the other crew member, was also a shellback.
And who wasn't?
And the owner.
The owner of the boat.
And his girlfriend.
He's got to go through that on his own boat, huh? So tell us what you did to this guy.
Actually, you can, okay, one more. Okay, there's King Neptune, King Neptune and a daughter of Neptune. So we crossed the equator, and when we crossed the equator, we came out in this garb. And the shellback ceremony refers to the ancient order of the deep. And it's a line crossing ceremony for people who have never done it before. And usually a senior officer dresses up as Queen or King Neptune, and they do really bad things to a lot of people. We went very easy on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just basically gave them necklaces that had...
What's the worst thing you did?
Gave them terrible food. Said, okay, you have to...
this gross sashimi that we just got.
Anyway, no, we went very easy on them. We didn't put them through. We didn't smear them with diesel or anything.
Yeah, after all, it was his boat, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it was really neat. So then once we crossed the equator, there we are approaching the island of San Cristobal.
This is quite a difference approaching via chart plotter than CellNav with a bunch of clouds, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
little bit more confidence.
Love chart plotters. Chart plotters are great. So
Real quick,
and then
the distance between Panama and Galapagos, what's the sailing distance?
it's about 895
And what about because you stopped in the Pearl Islands?
Oh, 800, I guess. We made it in 9 days.
Okay.
And so we
So
went,
you left the Pearl Islands, and the Pearl Islands turned you away.
Yeah.
Everything's shutting down. You're good to go to the Galapagos.
Yeah.
9 days later, you show up to Galapagos.
We show up at the Galapagos.
Okay.
We weren't allowed to get off the boat. We weren't even allowed to swim. There were soldiers patrolling the islands with AK-47s. And there was one boat next to us where a little boy got sick, and they came out in hazmat suits to take him to the hospital. And it was bizarre. So they wouldn't let us off, so we couldn't provision ourselves. So we called Tahiti crew, which are agents, and they arranged for a person to go shopping for us. And so they got food, and we got diesel given to us in 30-gallon. Can you go a couple more? One
Yeah.
more.
So how did they deliver the food to you? Did they put it in a dinghy and
Yeah.
kind of shove the dinghy towards your boat?
No, they were they did hand it aboard.
Okay.
We took it, and this actually is them getting the fuel in 30-gallon drums and putting it into the tank.
And did you feel was it weird, or were they standoffish?
So scared.
And you're communicating via radio?
Yeah. Everybody was scared. They just, people were dying, and they were hearing horrible things, and we were hearing horrible things from our friends. We had a little Garmin inReach where we could send text messages and we were hearing about people being locked and not allowed to leave their houses. And in the Galapagos, people were told that they had to be in their houses at sundown. And there were loudspeakers of them saying, you've got to go to your, in Spanish, you need to be in your houses by 5 o'clock, or it was.
And you could hear these loudspeakers from where you were. And how did they, that's crazy. I just can't even imagine sitting on a sailboat and hearing these loudspeakers, like, you know.
It was
pretty
bizarre.
Totalitarian. So how did they communicate to you that you couldn't go swimming?
Well, there were harbor people coming by and say, you cannot leave your boat. You can't go in the water. I mean, people were coming by and you will be fined.
So you were in a mooring field, or were you on the hook? Or
we were on the hook.
Okay, so you're on the hook in a anchorage.
Yes.
And every once in a while, harbor patrol would come by and yell at you on the loudspeaker, just to remind you to stay on your boat.
Well, they told us. We didn't need to be told anymore. We were just, they just came by and they said, you're not allowed to do that. Okay, we're fine with that.
Huh.
So
Prisoners in paradise, huh?
very much so. So so finally we refueled, and that slide.
And you said you refueled they brought a drum out.
30-gallon drums. Let me tell you, getting them aboard was really something.
You spill all over the place, right?
Well, yeah. we did do a siphon. We were able to get it in.
Sure.
But then we finally got the go-ahead to go to the Marquesas.
Okay.
So.
And what do you mean you got the go-ahead?
From Tahiti crew. They say, okay, you can go.
So the Tahiti crew is some friends you had in Tahiti that were kind of running logistics for you?
They were our agents. They were the agents for the Pacific puddle jump.
Okay, so that whole group, and they're like,
Yes.
all right, I think it's,
We can
go ahead and try.
Yes. So so we're underway, and we catch this beautiful Dorado, which he was delicious. And so chart plotter next, leaving San Cristobal.
Yeah, I see the chart plotter.
Oh, that is a Chinese. Okay, I was mentioning before that in the middle of the ocean, we would find boats on a collision course with us. And that was one of them. There were a whole bunch of Chinese fishing boats that were just going along. And if you go to
What are they fishing off of? Is there a bank out there or something, or?
They were just, I don't know what they were going for, but.
And they're not paying any attention. You ever get any radio contact for them, or you're just like watching for a couple hours and they're on?
Yeah, and there they were. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that there were a number of them. And, just going along together.
Do you think that they are aware of you? I mean, they didn't take any action, but do you think that they saw you and they're like, whatever, we just don't care?
I don't think they were even on the helm.
So they're
just going along.
Yeah, they're big ocean.
Yeah, they don't care.
Right.
So out in the middle of nowhere, before we encountered the trade winds, we had very light and variable winds. So next slide is Lon going swimming in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
And so, a couple of times we did that.
What do you estimate the depth there?
A little over 4,000.
Yeah. I guess anything over head height is deep enough, right? doesn't matter at some point.
That's right. So finally we encountered the trade winds. Next slide. And
How did you get through those doldrums or whatever you want to call them?
we motored.
Yeah.
We motored. Motored.
What does
and
this
then
thing motor at? Like how many knots?
6 knots.
6? Not bad.
5-6 knots.
Traveler does Traveler's
And
fast.
then 24 days later, next slide, we can see Nukuhiva in the Marquesas. And then next slide, this is approaching Taioe Bay. And it absolutely beautiful, about 92 boats, all on the hook in this big bay.
In jail.
In jail.
So did they tell you, did they give you any rules, quarantine on your boat for a couple weeks and you can come ashore?
No, they didn't say that. What we did is we went in and we figured, we should be able to clean our bottom because we noticed that we had a lot of these gooseneck barnacles.
Even after the fresh paint?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
didn't you
it
just
was-
paint it like 3 weeks ago?
Yes, it was like a shag carpet, and I kid you not, it was unbelievable. And we're thinking, oh my God, this is terrible. We have to get rid of that. So Lon and I jump in with scrapers, and we're scraping, and the harbor guy came on. He says, "You've got to get back on your boat. There's a $500 fine, and you can get us all in trouble if you don't get back on your boat." Okay.
I would have given him $500.
Yeah. So anyway.
So they didn't give you anything. They're just like, you got to be on your boat, no exceptions. Like, I mean, because effectively you've been quarantining since you've left. They didn't care?
We had been on that boat 31 days.
Huh.
And it was pretty obvious that we weren't sick. We didn't have it. But still, for about a week, we were on the boat and not allowed to get off. And finally, I guess they got smart and figured, well, they're probably okay. And they let us off.
So in the Marquesas, they did let you off.
They did let us off. And we were able to hike, we were able to shop. We had a great time, you can see. It's just beautiful there.
Because that would be more, because, you know, us mainlanders who went through this on the mainland, we were saying, we wish we were on a boat. We'd be safe on a boat, right?
Well,
but you know, so I would be more worried about getting off the boat and getting sick.
Yeah, but it was pretty obvious nobody was sick there because, you know.
It's Marquesas. And were their airports shut down? Like, were they?
Yes.
And was there any incidents of COVID on
Not
those
on the
islands?
Marquesas.
Huh.
Not on the Marquesas. But we finally.
Was this April yet? This would be into April, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next slide. There was that's a supply boat. And so they had a supply boat that would go in and out, but they weren't carrying passengers at that point.
This was a supply for the islands.
For the islands.
Yeah.
And that was the spot where they had the place to refuel.
The supply boat itself?
No,
Or-
the actual bunker.
Okay.
Go back. Anyway, there was, the only place to refuel was right next to that place where the supply boat comes in, which was about a 15-foot wall of concrete. And what they had to do, they had a gas station that was about maybe a block away. Maybe not
You want some
quite
water?
that much, yes. And they would take a really, really long hose and a diesel.
the mic.
And then
Drop it down to you?
they tied it. Well, we had to first do a Medmore, which meant we had to go and we had to drop
A
our
Medmore.
hook.
Wait, back up. I know what that is. I know it
Okay.
sucks.
Which
I hear
means-
people laughing. What is a Mediterranean mooring?
Which means we had to go out about 150 feet into the, drop a hook, make sure it
Sets.
sets, and then back down
Like-
to about 4 feet from the bunker, this giant bunker that could smash us to bits, and then get the hose passed to us with a rope, and then refuel that way.
Who likes Mediterranean mooring? Anybody? Who's done it before? It's funny because it's almost like, our parking spots here in America. Big, wide parking spots. You go to Costco and there's a big, wide parking spot. Mediterranean mooring, I feel like, is the European equivalent of a boat parking. We're used to moorings here. We're used to anchorages. We're used to, seawalls and docks. And you do a med mooring and it's like fitting into a European parking space, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was that the first time you guys have med moored, or
No.
that crew together?
No, but, no.
No.
We had done it before, but never with this giant concrete bunker that was threatening to smash us because,
Sure.
of course, the wind came up exactly when we needed to fuel.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you got some fuel there.
And then they gave us, they said, you can't check your boat in here. You can't check into the country here. You're eventually going to have to leave and go to Papeete, Tahiti. another 1,000 miles.
So you just don't check in. So you're
You
just getting
couldn't.
bounced around from country to country.
Yeah, yeah. And so,
This is the dream. This is what all of us on the mainland wanted, right? Let's get on a boat, get out of here.
it was pretty interesting, let me tell you.
But you did get to hike on the Marquesas, right?
Yes.
We have a picture of you hiking there?
Yeah.
Or back that up. We'll see if we got that picture.
No, I don't think we do.
Okay.
But then, so we decide that we're going to leave, and we're not going to go directly to Papeete, but we're going to stop in the Tuamotus and enjoy that a little bit. So we went to Tuamotus, and
And the Tuamotus, can you explain that island chain?
it's an island chain that is 76 islands and atolls spread over an area of 700,000 miles. And it is, it's very old. It's a lot of ancient volcanoes that just kind of rim a large lagoon, which used to be the volcano. And so we went to Tuamotus, and it just so happened that the owner's girlfriend's son was there on their boat. And so we stopped, and anyway, if you go a little bit further,
And these islands are very flat because it's just the rim
Yes.
peeking up above the water, right?
And the entrances to these lagoons can be quite tricky. And this one, you had to find a vector. You'd have to go to a certain lat long and get on like 270, and then go through the reef that way.
This is all charted, though?
Yes, it is charted.
But it's you're locked on that chart plotter. You're not.
I mean, it's small entrance.
Yeah.
And if you don't get it right, you hold your boat.
Is it marked? Like, do they have day marks or buoys or anything? So you're just on the chart plotter, and you got to follow your course.
Yeah,
You can't drift. You got to be on it.
No, you have to go right in. Next slide. Finally, we get in. It's absolutely beautiful. And next slide is the little settlement there. There was, in better times, non-pandemic, there was a little restaurant and a little...
Is that a pig pen?
Coming
Next
up.
slide.
Yes, they had pigs and dogs and cats, and all of them eat coconut. They eat coconut. Who knew? But anyway, yeah, they have this.
So
whole
the
thing.
pigs are for the eating, the dogs are for companionship.
Yes, and there was
Cats are for the rats.
There was one feral cat that was eating coconut.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next slide.
So did you have some pig?
No, well, they were closed.
They were closed for the season or whatever?
They had left.
Or for
because of the
COVID.
pandemic, and there was only a caretaker there. So we were kind of on our own, which was probably for the best. So we did a little bit of diving and a little bit of fishing and like that. Now, this slide is interesting because that is a catamaran that didn't come through the reef properly.
Or is that a
Trimaran.
That's yeah.
I'm sorry, trimaran. And what they do on the island is these boats will founder, and then they'll drag them into the lagoon and take everything off of them.
Scrap
and
them,
then
huh?
scrap them and sell.
I'm
So-
shocked that for a trimaran to founder on that reef or to get hold, that's,
Yeah,
because I mean, what do you think the draft is on that trimaran? Like 2 feet?
probably. But again,
Like, you see the surf at that point?
you've got to hit that entrance absolutely perfectly. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. So we had fun, but then we realized we had to get to Papeete. So we left the island and going through, had a very nice sail. I think it took us another 4 days. And
But you mentioned here that there was a squall.
Okay. There was a big joke on our boat that whenever there was a night watch, the only time a squall would hit was when I was on watch alone.
Oh.
And this got really, really old because everybody's saying, oh, yeah, we read all of the time. It was really a beautiful sail. We didn't have to do anything. And oh, my God.
And you're the one that's always waking people up.
I didn't wake anybody up. But what happened was the Lon was on watch right before me, and he went down. I came up. About 2 minutes later, squall hits. The wind clocks, the boat goes on its ear. I'm trying to crawl things down. I am absolutely soaked. And Lon pokes his head up and said, how do you do that? And then he went down below and went to sleep.
He went to sleep. He didn't help you,
Nah.
So I gotta ask details, right? There's a squall that pops up. You said the wind clocks. What point of sail were you on when that hit?
I think we were on a broad reach.
So you're broad. So
And then all of a sudden,
moving as fast.
bam. Yeah.
Where did it clock? Did it clock forward, aft?
It clocked. It backed, actually.
Okay, so it backed.
And so everything went bam, and we're like out of control.
And what did you have full
in
sails up?
irons.
Everything's up?
Everything is up. So I'm trying to get everything, in reasonable order, and then the squall leaves. And by the way, that's the way a squall looks at sea.
Okay.
So, next slide.
And did you see this coming, or was it pretty?
Yeah, you could see it coming on the chart plotter.
Did you believe it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're like, I don't know if this is going to happen. Let's just keep it how it is. I've found that I always change sails too late.
Yeah, well.
I mean, I think everybody does that.
Well, yeah.
No, we don't need to change down. We don't need to. Oh,
Well-
now we're over.
I was always telling everybody, listen, we need to shorten sails at night so that at night when only one person is on deck, that person can easily handle things.
Yeah, but then you're going slow.
At night, who cares?
Well, 12 hours at night, you lose a knot, you lost, 12 miles.
Do I care? No.
I like to race, right? So I'm always thinking like we got to go fast.
Well, yeah.
Right, fastest sail combination. And I guess the Navy experience is like I wake people up.
Yeah.
If
Well,
we need to change down, all hands on deck. Sorry, let's go.
You see, you don't want to do that unless it's absolutely necessary because people do need their sleep.
Yeah.
And they get really pissed off.
Oh, I know. It's the worst. But it's funny because when I was in the Navy, we did learn, like I could just like throw on the Fowlies and go ahead and do, change a sail and then just back to sleep. And that took 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I was woken up, changed the sail, and I'm back in my rack sleeping.
Yeah.
We were very good at that.
Yeah.
But we'd still grumble about it. Next morning we wake up and we're like, why'd you wake me up for that? You could have carried that one the whole night.
Well, yeah, but we were, we were all pretty competent, so
Yeah.
we were able to pretty much handle her, each one of us.
So tell me about the approach to Tahiti. I think that's the next slide up, right?
Yeah, we finally saw Tahiti and coming up, and there we are coming up the coast, and it was a big thrill. We were all ready to go and go to Tahiti and get checked in and be able to walk around and go to get a cappuccino or whatever. And so we finally.
So what changed? Like you go to Tahiti and now you can walk around and get a cup of coffee?
Well,
like
we couldn't.
How do you get checked into Tahiti?
We were quarantined. We couldn't get off the boat, and then we had to call the agents to come, and they came in their hazmat suits and made sure that we didn't have temperatures, and they determined that we were okay. They didn't have COVID tests at that point, but they figured that we
But
were
you were
okay.
screened at that
We
point.
were screened, and then, but they did come to the boat, and then they let us go on the island.
So at this point, there were some COVID procedures in place, and you were
Yes.
able to get out there, and that's pretty cool.
Yes, and I think that at the time, they'd had about 50 cases of COVID in
On
Papeete.
Tahiti.
Yeah, in Papeete. But I think all of these islands were very, very concerned about getting COVID because if something happened on the island and a bunch of people got sick, they wouldn't be able to do very much with them because their medical staff was very limited.
But everything was still open? Some stuff was still open?
No, the restaurants were open, and some of the stores were open. None of the hotels, none of the tours, none of the, fun stuff like that. But the city was open at the time.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, but I mean, that's your goal, right? You made it
Yes.
to Tahiti. So
So we made it.
It didn't go the way you expected it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
But then the challenge was, how do I get back? And let me tell you, that was something in and of itself.
Did you consider staying on Tahiti?
No, I wanted to get back.
Not a bad place to ride out COVID, right?
No, but there was nothing going on. And Papeete is a city, and it's not that exciting. And we couldn't go anyplace. We couldn't, do any tours or go to any nice places, that, like Bora Bora or whatever. So I tried to, I was trying to get on a flight.
Uh-huh.
And I find, first we heard that the French military was planning on taking American nationals and taking us home. But that didn't happen. So I was trying to figure out what the flight situation was, and I found out that they only had one flight every 10 days in and out of Papeete, and that flight was to Paris. Now, the other challenge was they wouldn't even let me get on the standby list until I had a flight out of Paris and to the United States.
So you're just going to do the worldwide tour, see where you can catch COVID, go everywhere.
So I finally the only place I could get any information other than that was to go to the airport. And I said, well, I can't really book my return flights until I find out whether I'm going to be able to make this flight, which was leaving in 2 hours for Paris.
Catch 22, huh?
Yeah. So I said, what do I do? So the lady was very nice, and she said, well, the flight is really full, but I think you can get on if you book the other flights first. And she says, I'll help you book them. So she booked me a flight from Paris to Frankfurt, and from Frankfurt to Newark, and then a flight from Newark to LAX.
Oh, yeah.
And then she was able to put me on standby.
So I got to ask, how much did that cost?
You don't want to know.
No, I do. I want to.
You don't want to. But it took about 48 hours to get home. And I was very happy to get there.
And this was like the height. I guess this was when lockdown was really starting to swing in, but travel was still allowed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you made it home.
Made it home.
Wow, what a tale. That's amazing.
So I think that's pretty much the whole story.
I mean, it's interesting because I think all of us thought, this would be a great time. I know some members kind of were out abroad when this happened. This would be a great time to have a sailboat. Right?
Well, yeah, I can't disagree. We felt very fortunate to be where we did because we knew we were safe.
Right.
But still, we had loved ones who were back here going through hell.
Yeah.
And that was not comforting.
Huh. That's interesting. Well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to open it up to some questions. I'm sure people have, their hands are already up. So Lance, can you pass the other microphone around? Or why don't we try Vivian? Why don't we give up your microphone and turn your mic pack back on? I think for the Q&A we'll be able to do this. Lance, can you pass this microphone? Or Larry? Can you pass that around?
Check.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
It'll probably be good enough to get us through the Q&A here.
What was the date of your arrival back in California?
I forget.
Well,
April-ish.
roughly how many months were you gone?
I think it was May 15th, May 16th.
How much time did you spend on
those
Tahiti?
boats that were traveling with you? Did they keep coming?
Actually, Lon came back to the United States, and Peter and Dorta went on, and the boat is still in Tahiti. They fell in love with huahine, and they're just sailing around making friends.
That's cool. Right over here. Oh,
I
Keith?
think you
Yeah.
answered my question. I was going to ask, what happened to the boat after you left?
Yeah, it's in Tahiti. They're really enjoying her. They've been. We were having issues with the solar panels. He got more solar panels. He's changed the battery system to a lithium battery system, and he's fixing and repairing the boat daily in exotic places.
Why did he switch up to a lithium system?
Because the batteries weren't enough to keep up with the systems of the boat.
Yeah, you had to run the engine too much.
Yeah, had to run the engine too much, but
And that was something you kind of shook down on this cruise, huh?
yeah,
Well, you've got 300 gallons of diesel, geez.
yeah. Well, lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky. The boat was really, really a good boat for this particular trip.
Right over
So
here.
you said you had to know your crew members very well. Did you all get along, and are you still friends?
Oh,
COVID buddies.
good question. We are all still very good friends. Really good friends. Did we have disagreements? Oh, yes. We definitely had disagreements, but I think that that's the difference. You should be able to talk about things that are concerns and work them out. And we did.
Did anybody, you don't have to say who it was, but did anybody say, screw this, I'm jumping ship, I'm going ashore, I don't care what that harbor master says?
Yes, but they stayed. But
You convinced them to stay on board?
we couldn't get off. If we went, we couldn't really go on shore.
I mean, you
and
can
stay.
swim.
Sure, we could have, but
And see what that,
But we
call
couldn't-
their bluff.
we couldn't check in.
Yeah.
We had to pretty much stay right until
But
the
this
end.
was a conversation, right? Someone had this idea, like, let's
yeah.
just roll the
Oh, yeah.
dice
I
and see
mean,
what happens if we walk on.
People had major disagreements about weather. And about how we should handle certain things and be concerned about certain things. And yeah, I mean, yes, we did.
Someone like me kept those big sails up at night, right?
Yeah, you. Somebody like you. Yeah. No, but that was another thing. I'm a very conservative sailor. And at night, when there's one person on watch, it's better to reduce sails first, rather than have them, go out of control and all hands on deck and try to save the ship
Yeah.
with squalls.
I think I just have no problem bringing everybody up on deck if I need it.
You're mean.
Like yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's a little bit of a racing mentality. Like we're gonna change sails when we need to. But I've had to learn that. I've had to learn, like, if you need to change down, you need to change down.
Yes.
By the time you're debating it,
Yeah.
you're already past the
It's
point.
too late.
Like if you're saying, should we change down? The answer is everybody up, we're changing down.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, like it's interesting. Right over here.
Vivian, Rich, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. I'm curious with Vivian's early days when she was so competent early to go to Lahaina in your skill set, how did it establish? I think in 1974, it wasn't easy with sextants and all that you were able to amass that knowledge to make that competent sail over to Hawaii.
Thank you. I love sailing. I love it. And I just, anything I needed to learn, I was determined to learn. And I know I took a class in celestial navigation, and but I never really used it. And I was young and stupid. Seriously, I admit it. I was young and stupid, and I didn't really think about the danger. I thought, oh, the adventure, let's go. Let's have let's go to Hawaii. And I think experience teaches you an awful lot, and mistakes teach you an awful lot. And certainly I made them. And if you can survive them, then you're much better off for them.
And
Thank you.
speaking of celestial navigation, Danny knows a little about that.
Danny, you got,
What year was your picture there?
Which one?
The one in Papeete?
Papeete, that was 2020.
Danny lives in Papeete, by the
Oh,
way.
really?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because I live across the street. So if I knew you, I could have
Hey,
picked you up and showed you around or whatever.
Danny's
Yeah,
like, that's me.
well, that was the boat. That
Oh,
the
okay.
boat was the boat was there for I'd say about a month and a half.
Yeah, I live about 2 blocks from the retro, so you know where that's at.
Yes,
So yeah, it's really strange just being here and seeing that photo here.
that's great.
And it's not one of your photos, right? That is a dedication, right up here, I got a question. It's dedication with the cell nav. Because like
Yes.
I'm an engineer, I do a lot of math.
Yes.
I'm a math. I guess I use math. I know that the cell nav math, especially without a calculator, because I learned it with a calculator,
Whoa.
that's dedication. Because
Yes.
that is some hairy calculations.
Yes, yes.
I think we're getting down to our last question.
Right here, yeah. Thank you.
I would like to ask you, what's the most beautiful thing you've seen in all your days at sea?
God, it's hard even to. I mean, it's hard. Some of the sunsets would just be. You can't even describe them. It's so beautiful. I'd say sunsets and seeing an island that you're approaching, and it's taken you days to get there, and finally seeing that island and knowing that you made it, you can't even describe the feeling.
I love that description that you could smell Hawaii. Yeah.
I've got a question because I only know approaching an island when you know that it's there.
Yeah.
You have the experience of approaching an island. I hope it's there. Because I took these star shots. I hope it's there. Versus like, oh, finally, because like on this trip, you knew it was there.
Yes.
You got your GPS chop.
Yeah.
You're like, it's there.
Yeah.
We should be able to see it now, and there it is.
Yes, exactly.
Right? But how does that experience different from the 1970s experience where, I hope we're there.
I was terrified that I had not made the right calculations and that I was going to miss Hawaii. and I was, just before that, there was a very famous female sailor that had sailed single-handed she was going to Hawaii, and she missed the islands. And I was thinking, oh my God, am I going to be another one that actually missed the island? And I didn't. When I realized that I had actually done it, oh my God, that was the best. I danced. I was so excited. It was just an indescribable feeling, really.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, hey, Vivian, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you guys for joining us, and thank you for joining us online. If you're watching, obviously we do this in person. You probably heard the audience, so if you're watching and you're in the LA area, please come out on a Thursday night to join us at the Adventurers Club of Los Angeles. But that's all we have for you tonight. And thank you for joining us again.
Thank
We'll
you
see you
for
next
having
week.
me.
Thank you.